there's a long history of women being told that they just need to relax or they need to do yoga and their chronic pain will get better. And it is one part of it, but being listened to and having your conditions properly researched and getting the pain relief that you need or the surgical interventions that you need. Like, yes, our nervous system and our pain is in our brain, but the pain is real. So really acknowledging what people are going through and how this can be like one tool in their toolbox. I'm not here to say do yoga and your condition will go away, but hopefully you'll just have some more tools to help you manage it.
What's up, ladies? Welcome to the health class she deserves, the show where we ditch outdated women's health myths and talk real bodies, real cycles, and real stories. I am your host, Autumn Payon, and today we are welcoming aerial yoga instructor and author Jo Stewart to class. Jo is a senior Yoga Australia teacher and founder of Garden of Yoga, with over 2 decades of experience adapting movement for individual needs. Since 2005, Jo has championed body positivity and inclusivity, specializing in everything from calming yin practices to playful aerial yoga. As a pioneer in accessible aerial yoga, Jo co-hosts the Flow Artists podcast and has led specialized workshops and retreats globally, including her signature body positive aerial yoga sessions. Her extensive credentials include training in trauma-informed yoga, neurodiversity, and active aging. Jo's debut book, 8 Limbs of Aerial Yoga, Adapting Practice for Neurodiversity, Accessibility, and Physical Support, is set for release in 2026. Through her teaching and community work, she remains dedicated to making the transformative power of yoga available to everybody. Jo, welcome to class.
Thank you so much, Autumn, and thank you for that lovely introduction. I'm really happy to be here.
Of course, I am so happy to have you. So let's just jump right into it. I think a lot of people see aerial yoga and they kind of think like, ooh, fun way to do yoga. But there's actually, like, it serves a much greater purpose for our health and particularly for women and non-binary folk. And we're going to unpack all of that in this conversation. But let's just start at the beginning of your journey. What drew you to teaching aerial yoga and eventually to writing a book on it?
So I just discovered aerial yoga kind of by chance. Often when I go on holidays, I like to check out local yoga classes. Like I feel like it's a really nice way to get a vibe of a place and like it feels good. Like, you know, if you're traveling and walking around all day and taking flights and stuff, like you do need to take care of your own body so you can get the most out of that trip. So this was in San Francisco and I just saw, I think it was called Firefly Yoga. And it was yoga using the aerial hammock. So I booked in with my husband, Ron, and we tried it out. And I just absolutely loved it. Like, especially that feeling of exploring a new city when you're walking around all day and like my legs and feet and just whole body from there felt so refreshed from being in the hammock. Like it felt really nurturing. It felt really fun. And I just had this feeling like I want to do this every day and I want to teach this as well. So after that one class, I came back home to my hometown, Melbourne, Australia. And at that time, there weren't any aerial yoga studios. So I just signed up to this Brisbane studio, which is the other side of the country, and went on their mailing list. And they just happened to run a teacher training probably a few months after that. They brought a teacher, Christopher Harrison, out from America. So I went to this training at the Gold Coast Olympics Village. It was like a camp. We stayed there for, I think, 8 days. And yeah, after just doing that one class, then I did 8 days intensive teacher training. And then after that, when I came home, I also had to build my own studio because there weren't any places that were already set up. So I actually converted my garage. Like I had to get engineering work done and new beams fitted. And it was just a really tiny studio for 3 people, which was actually a really great way to start teaching because aerial yoga can be so varied. Like you can really adapt it to lots of individual needs. But if you've got a class of 20 people, that is kind of a lot. But if you've got a class of 3 people, that really helped me, I guess, develop as the kind of teacher that really helped everyone find their own individual way versus, all right, this is the move that we're all doing. And then
Mhm.
after maybe 4 years or so in that smaller space, we saved up, we applied for permits, and we actually knocked down the little garage and built a bigger studio space. Like, I'm really privileged that like we own our home and we could build a home studio. Like, that's helped my
Mhm.
business so much. And I think it's kind of
Mhm.
the only way to be viable to teach small classes. Because if you're paying rent on a bigger studio space or even a small studio space, it's really hard to make that work with smaller
Mhm.
groups. And even now, like my classes are 6 people max for aerial
Okay.
yoga.
Wow. Wow. So that is just like kismet, the way that that all came together. I feel like the best things in life always kind of happen that way, where it's just you stumble upon it, and then, having the trainer come out so shortly after that trip, and then, being able to convert your garage and everything, that's like really incredible and obviously meant to be, I would say.
Yeah. And just sometimes travel adventures like change your life. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
It really is, and I also love that. I think doing yoga when you're traveling is also it's just like a cool thing to do, and like you said, like you really gotta move your body and keep things going because, plane rides, everything can be really intense and not great for the back, so, yeah, I think that's a great way to explore a place also, but let's dive into what aerial yoga actually is for people who maybe are like, "I have no idea what you guys are talking about." Can you just, like, give us the basics?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's just using the aerial hammock, which, if you've been to the circus and you've seen the aerial silks, those are two fabric panels that hang down. This is the same type of fabric, but it's looped in the middle. So it attaches at both ends up high, and the lower part of the loop. For most classes, it hangs at about hip height, but then I also teach restorative classes where you can hang it at knee height or ankle height. So in those types of classes, you use the fabric the same way you'd use a bolster or yoga blocks. Most of your body's on the ground, and then you just have the support of the fabric. Maybe for your upper body, maybe for your legs, there's lots of different options. When the fabric is at hip height, you can also use it in lots of different supportive ways. So you can stand with the fabric wrapped around your back and then coming around underneath each arm and hold it with both hands. So that's a great option if you wanted to practice like a single leg balancing pose or even something like a lunge where it's not comfortable or possible for you to support your own weight with one or two legs, because you can use your arms to help you with your balance, and you can really control, like, say, how deeply you bend your knee. So you can find versions of that pose that work for you. That's the more supportive way that you can use it in standing poses. You can also use it to challenge your balance by putting one foot or one leg into that hammock loop. And then you can do that same single leg balance pose or lunge. But now you have your leg in the fabric. So it is still kind of supporting you, but it also moves. So you've got
Mhm.
this unique way to work with balance where the fabric's right there if you need it. You can still hold it with your hands, or it also moves and flows, so it really hones your own ability to find balance. The
Mhm.
inversions are probably the most well-known part of aerial yoga. Those are the poses that we tend to see online. And there are some really dramatic kind of circus-looking poses, which often are more accessible than what people might realize because the hammock is supporting you wrapped around your hips. But as long as you don't have any other reasons why your body isn't comfortable in versions, because there are contraindications, but you start in a sitting position, wrap around your legs and hips, and then gradually lower yourself down. And that can feel really amazing. Like, it can feel like you're really decompressing your spine. It can feel really freeing to be in this position that maybe you didn't think was possible for you, but because you've got the hammock support, it actually is a lot more accessible than a traditional yoga inversion, like a headstand or a shoulder stand, where that weight's on the neck and shoulders. In aerial yoga, there's generally not any compression or weight on the head or neck. And
Mhm.
it means that you can get those inversion benefits for your brain and your body in a safer, more supportive way. And then there are a lot of poses where you just have full support. So it's like you're totally cocooned by the fabric. You can lie in it like a hammock. And from there, you can still move in a lot of different ways. So those are my favorite poses to work with spinal movement because you're fully supported. It's almost like the feeling of moving in water. You can bend from
Mm,
side to side, you can curl into a ball, you can arch your back. And what a lot of people find is because they're in a different relationship to gravity. If you have like a spine condition, say, where you've got maybe compression on some of your discs, that means that those types of movements standing up tends to compress a little bit more and cause discomfort. When you're lying down, just like when you're moving in water, you're able to move a little bit more freely and a little bit more easily, and often do movements that cause you pain or discomfort in a way that feels really good for your body. And it's a very individual thing. So I'm really all
mhm.
about helping people find the way to move that feels right for them. And that can be a gradual process, but a really empowering process and very rewarding to see people be surprised at how good they can feel as they move when maybe movement has been something that's been really challenging for them in the past.
Yeah, and that I know you put such a huge emphasis on accessibility, which is so important, especially in yoga where it's become very westernized and it's not always accessible. And a lot of people, you say yoga, and instead of thinking of something more traditional or like inclusive, you're thinking of like a very thin white woman at 6 a.m. on a Saturday morning. And it's like not, that's not very inclusive. So let's talk a little bit about that accessibility and what does teaching an accessible aerial yoga class look like to you?
Well, I've got to shout out to one of my main teachers, Jivana Heyman, the founder of Accessible Yoga, who's been super supportive for me, and I've like learned so much from him. And accessibility on one level is about maybe sharing poses like asana in a variety of different ways. So people could use the props that help to support them, using language that's supportive, giving options. But asana is just one layer of yoga. There's the philosophy, there's the ethics. And so it's not just giving different prop options in class, it's really sharing this practice in a way that it meets people where they're at. So everyone can access those emotional and spiritual and physical benefits. And I feel like the hammock helps with that, especially on a brain level. So a lot of like what you're saying, feeling unwelcome in class can be a result of an adverse experience in one class that stays with you. So maybe you don't feel comfortable walking in a different yoga space. Like toxic diet culture has absolutely pervaded the yoga world
Mhm.
and the movement world in a really unfortunate way. So, this practice that should be like a safe haven where you can decompress, where you can unwind, and where you can like really access who you really are is often wrapped up in a lot of like past experiences, and it can be challenging to shift that. Sometimes even just being in a room of other people that don't look like you can feel like challenging, scary,
Yeah.
not welcoming.
Mhm.
So, starting in your own cocoon gives you a visual sense of being in your own space. It means that as we move into the class, you have this time to be with yourself. You have this feeling of being cocooned, being supported, and you can start to move in the way that feels like how your body moves versus even if it's unconscious, when you look around and everyone is doing one version of the move, even if there's other options suggested, sometimes it doesn't feel like that's the right choice. Sometimes it feels like maybe you should just
Mhm.
push yourself to do what everyone else is doing. And
Yeah.
I think to have that visual sense of your own space can be a really helpful way to start to work from that mindset of doing your practice in the way that feels right for you.
But I wrote down a quote from your book that is like about this topic because I was like, it was just said so well. You say that assuming that people are coming to yoga for a workout or that yoga is a practice for weight loss also dishonors the rich cultural history of this practice and turns it into another commodity of toxic diet culture. And I think that, obviously women are disproportionately impacted by toxic diet culture. And I think that particularly those in bigger bodies feel real unwelcome in a yoga class. for the reasons that we've stated. And so I think that's really great that like being in your own sort of cocoon, because I definitely want to go now, but I've never been to an aerial yoga class. And like you said, you see those like inversions and stuff online, but being able to do all the classes start just kind of like wrapped up in your own space?
I start most of them that way. If
Okay.
someone has ticked on their form that they're really sensitive to motion sickness, often I start on the floor instead with just
Mhm.
feet or just head in the hammock. And sometimes if it's a really hot day, I personally feel like I don't want to be wrapped up in a cocoon. Like I want to start in something that's a bit more breezy.
Yeah.
So I start then as well lying on the floor with just feet in the hammock. And that
Mhm.
means that we're starting with a very, like, as long as you're okay to get down to the floor, it's a
Mhm.
pretty accessible move for everyone, and the body choices are a little bit more limited, but you can be still and just feel the feet rest. You can flow into gentle side to side movements. If you hold to one side, suddenly it's a bit more of a resistance feeling, or you can do a bigger sweep. So I try and share like low stakes choices like
Yeah.
that, where everyone can just feel into slightly different versions of the move and
Mhm.
just notice which one their body and their mind respond to.
Mhm.
It's a way of bringing awareness into the body, so cultivating interoception and just making these little choices about, oh, what feels best for me, that I then hope flows on through the class, especially when we start to make bigger choices like, do I want to go upside down or do I want to stay low to the ground and do a restorative version of that pose? And then ideally, hopefully as well, that ability to tune into what feels right for you is something that you cultivate in class, but then you can bring out into the world with you. That
Yeah.
trusting yourself.
Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I can imagine also when it comes to that sort of tendency that we have to compare, and feel really pressured, like you were saying before, like even if your body's kind of like, oh, I don't think we should push further, but everyone else is, and that you feel that pressure to push further. It's like I can imagine that having the hammock there and um just being more in your own space really just puts everybody on an equal playing ground. It doesn't really matter like what you look like or how many exercise classes you go to a week or where you're starting from. It's all very individual, and it's not super everyone's, I guess, concerned with their own. You're not all staring at each other.
Exactly. And I think there's something as well, like even in a mat based class, if you say you're welcome to lie down and take a break at any time, you're welcome to take child's pose at any time, it feels different. Like if you've
Mhm.
paid to go to an hour class and then you spend the whole time lying on your mat, there's definitely like I would have something psychological that be like, oh, why did I come to class? Like I came to class to move.
Mhm.
I should move. But because the hammock is already this like unique experience, I feel like it's a little bit more of a, "Oh, this is just one of the options." And
Yeah.
because I've got a really, like some of my students are working with all kinds of different health conditions. So there's very much a community of people taking
Yeah.
the options. And that's something that people visually see in class. Oh, that really experienced person is just resting in the hammock for the whole class. So I
Mhm.
think it does make it seem like more of a viable option rather than just one of those suggestions of like, oh, yeah, rest if you need to, like you see
Mhm.
it modeled. And also, it kind of feels like more of a unique experience that is worth coming to class for.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So when it comes to women's health, this is a women's health podcast. Um, yeah, we've already talked about a lot of like the benefits, but what are some other ways that women or non-binary folk in general are benefiting from aerial yoga?
Well, unfortunately, they are much more likely to be dealing with a chronic health condition. I believe the
Mhm.
statistic is something like 80% of chronic health conditions, chronic pain conditions, do affect women and non binary folks. So
Mhm.
many more people are going to be coming to class with chronic pain.
Yeah.
And the hammock can be a way of just meeting you where you're at. Because it might feel like energy is really low that day, but you still want to do something that helps you feel better, like obviously. And it gives us this ability to work with the nervous system in different ways. So, just that feeling of being held and being cocooned can be a soothing feeling. It can help your nervous system down regulate. And hopefully, that means you have a relaxing experience in class. You get better sleep that night because there's absolutely this cycle of increased pain, increased stress, worse sleep, and then that cycle continues. So,
Mhm.
anything that we can do to kind of interrupt that and to give you this opportunity where you can feel a bit better in your body. Firstly, from, like I was saying, that cocooning kind of feeling, the hammock also gives lots of different ways to work with the vestibular system. So, just for people who might not be familiar with that, the vestibular system is in your inner ear and it um, regulates your physical balance, but also has connections to emotional balance. So, some vestibular soothing moves are like a gentle forward and back movement. We're all different. So, I'm giving kind of things that apply to most people, but it'll be very much a feeling of tuning into what is soothing for you. And it can be
Mhm.
really individual. So, like stillness, gentle forward and back motion tends to be more soothing. Stimulating movements tend to be spinning, upside down, irregular movements, unpredictable movements, roller coasters. So, not in my class, but in life, a roller coaster would be a
Yeah.
vestibular stimulating movement. And for many people, they need the stimulating movements to feel regulated. And so I have had people who come in and they want to be in class, but their energy levels are feeling really low. But they know for them, like a little spin or an upside
Mhm.
down helps them feel a bit more energized. And that might be what they need to feel balanced on that day.
Mhm.
Just with the chronic pain stuff as well. So sometimes there's this feedback loop of anticipatory pain, like say for endometriosis and other like pelvic, not that endometriosis is a whole body condition, but pelvic health
Mhm.
conditions as well. Sometimes because your body knows that pain is coming, those muscles tense up in anticipation of
Yeah.
that. They go into like gripping and protection mode. And then that can be more lower back pain. If it's around your sciatic nerve, it can be sciatic pain going down your leg. Like if you can interrupt that pain message with a different sensation message, sometimes you can kind of shift out of that feedback loop. And so
Mhm.
that can be moving in your body in a way that feels relaxing or pleasurable. And obviously, you're still going to have the health condition, but feeling a little bit better on that day, and then maybe sleeping a bit better, and maybe knowing that you have this tool in your toolbox that can help that pain message shift into a sensation message can be like one way to help manage these conditions that are ongoing and can be really exhausting and really debilitating and really depressing. To have like something that can help you feel better, even if it's just while you're in the hammock. There's
Yeah.
also like the hormones that we get, like endorphins and like the other feel good hormones that we get when we're enjoying ourselves and when we're in a group of people enjoying ourselves that aren't really connected to any particular physical movement. It's from the sensation of feeling good in our bodies. And then the co regulation benefits that we get from moving in rhythm with others. And I don't
Mhm.
think that it needs to be doing the same movement. I think being in a room with other people, moving and breathing together tends to be enough to kind of help everyone tap into that state. And that can be a benefit in itself. And like just feeling part of a community can be really powerful.
Yeah. Yeah, and all of I mean, that's like natural painkillers too for people dealing with chronic pain, all of those endorphins and everything. I love how you brought that all that up, like with the nervous system and, our bodies essentially I'm doing like a deep dive on my TikTok of the neuroscience of endometriosis. And I have been like reading so much research about it, and it's like it's insane because to even think we don't even have a lot of like quality research on endo. So the fact that like with the stuff that we do have, this is what's coming up is that the sensitization of the nervous system and your body essentially learns to be in pain, which is also why, you can have endo and you can go through like an excision surgery with a really highly qualified specialist and still experience certain types of pain afterward because your body just learned that it's going to be in pain all the time and it's now amplifying those signals. So it's really, really cool that aerial yoga can kind of provide this very adaptable um, way to move, even on the days when you're like, I just don't feel like doing anything. And I can imagine it would feel very soothing, like you said, with the vestibular system, and also it being related to both physical and emotional balance. Like, we have separated the body and the brain so much in our modern culture. So I always love when things like that just match up. It's like nature did it correctly. The fact that it's emotional and physical balance, I think that's really cool. Maybe a lot of people are like, yeah, duh. But I'm like, I think that's really cool. And I think we're so disconnected from that.
I think so too. And it's also a symptom of chronic pain. Like it many people notice they feel like less coordinated in their movements, like they bump into stuff, their balance suffers. It's like your nervous system is overwhelmed with dealing with like this crisis, like this
Mm-hmm.
emergency pain situation that it kind of affects like a lot of other things that you need your nervous system to help you do. And like
Yeah.
you're saying, like if there's one area that's really highly sensitized, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're hurting yourself more when you feel pain from that area of the body. It really is just reflecting how sensitized your nerves are to that area.
Mm-hmm.
And like a lot of this I hear in language, especially around pelvic health. And
Mm-hmm.
so using terms like uh, dysfunctional pelvic like SIJ dysfunction. So your sacroiliac
Mm-hmm.
joint is where your spine attaches to your pelvis. So even to just shift language around SIJ dysfunction to SIJ sensitization, which is actually more scientifically accurate because it doesn't mean that that area is dysfunctional. It just means that those nerves are really highly sensitized. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think that a lot of the way that we use language can be really powerful. And I definitely want to address the layer in all of this of there's a long history of women being told that they just need to relax or they need to do yoga and their chronic pain will get better. And it is one part of it, but
Mm-hmm.
being listened to
Yeah.
and having your conditions properly researched
Yep.
and getting the pain relief that you need or the surgical interventions that you need. Like, I know the statistics for endometriosis are like something like 7 years just to get a diagnosis. So that's like a lot of time living
Mm-hmm.
in a lot of pain and maybe not being believed or maybe being told it's all in your head. And
Yeah.
it is that thing where, like, yes, like our nervous system and our pain is in our brain, but the pain is real. So,
Mm-hmm.
really acknowledging what people are going through and how this can be like one tool in their toolbox. I think it's
Yes.
important just to acknowledge that, like, yeah, I'm not here to say do yoga and your condition will go away, but hopefully you'll just have some more tools to help you manage it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and I love that. And I love that you brought that up because yeah, you're so right. It is one of those things where it's like, just calm down. Just and I get comments all the time where people are like, yeah, my doctor just told me to like relax or to do yoga more often or whatever. And it's like, it's a shame because obviously relaxing is good for us, but it's used as a way to just dismiss women in the healthcare system without actually diagnosing them or having to deal with them. And I think it also comes a little bit from the hurt egos because we know so little about the female body. And as a professional who's gone through like decades of training, it's probably a little embarrassing when you can't even answer the most basic questions to a female patient. But it's like, it's not even that doctor's fault. It's a systemic issue that is such a problem. So I definitely, thank you for bringing that up because it's a really important point. But yeah, it's still two things can be true. We can not just dismiss women by telling them to do yoga, but we also can use yoga. And as we're talking about aerial yoga as a very important tool in our toolbox, because I'm learning a lot about like the vagus nerve and autonomic nervous system balance. And one of the most effective ways to balance your nervous system is through that connection with breath and all of the things that we learn in a yoga class, right? So,
Yeah, and
so
actually I
important.
feel like aerial yoga has this extra like superpower to help with the breath aspect, because that is another layer where, yes, it's definitely helpful to breathe slower, to breathe more deeply, to gently lengthen out the exhale, to kind of send that down regulating message. But for a lot of people, like maybe people who have panic attacks, maybe people who have trouble breathing, or just find it really challenging to focus on their breath, that can be really triggering instruction. Like, I
Mhm.
know people who have told me that the focus on the breath when they feel like a panic attack is coming has exacerbated that. It's spiraled them into that panic attack.
Mm.
And if you've had bad experiences trying to tune into your breath, or it just feels like something you've tried and something that doesn't come easily, and then it's like feeling like a failure or it's feeling stressful, the feeling of having the fabric wrapped around you can be quite helpful. It's not that interoceptive, what's happening with my breath inside my body. It's this feedback that you can feel from the outside of your body. And you can feel the fabric having a little stretch as you inhale. You can feel it hugging you in as you breathe out. And it also is the feeling, you can do this sitting or lying down. The fabric touches the back of the body and the sides of the body, like the back and sides of the rib cage. And those are often the areas that we don't see. So it's harder to sense the breath into those areas. So it actually gives you this tactile feedback of something to feel like you're breathing into and expanding into, that can be another way into that breath awareness where, like, once you've made those connections, it can be a little bit easier to breathe that way outside of
Mhm.
the hammock as well.
Yeah. Yeah, and I also, while we're, kind of on the chronic pain part of the conversation, I am curious, if, working with students who perhaps are dealing with some sort of chronic pain, whether it's from endometriosis or something else. I know, at least in my experience, um, you really tend to feel limited in your own body on some days, and especially with something like endo, it's very cyclical. So, like, one day you feel great, and the next day you just feel like you can't even get out of bed, and it can be really devastating. I'm curious if you have any perspective on, like, how aerial yoga can kinda change that thought process from "I'm limited" to "I'm capable of more than I thought."
I think to shift the focus into, you're getting the benefits by showing up. So if you have one of those days where you can't get out of bed, like that day you just need to rest.
Mhm,
But if you're having a day when you're feeling low in energy, but okay to come to class,
mhm,
then I absolutely try and create that culture of like, okay, if energy battery is low, then your job is to rest and rejuvenate and nurture yourself. And if that is like cocooning for the whole class, that's totally fine. You still will get the co-regulation benefits of being in the room with other people. You'll still feel that support of the fabric. And if it feels like you want to move in gentle ways, and like sometimes if say your pain is back pain and you're able to gently move the spine in a way that feels more relaxing for your back, then that's a benefit in
mhm,
itself. So really shifting the goal of the class from being physical achievement to, I guess, almost like mental achievement of
mhm.
what's going to help me feel better. And sometimes it's a process of finding that, because sometimes it might feel like when you arrive, what you just need is to rest and breathe and be cocooned. But then while you're there, it might actually start to feel like more movements are possible, knowing that you can ease in and out of that as you need to, just based on what's feeling good for you. Then I feel like it's not like you have any kind of expectation of yourself of anything you need to do on a physical level in the class, because it really is just that goal of meeting your body where you're at, tuning into what type of movement or breath, or like even if it's just like listening to music for
Mhm.
an hour, like that can take you out of that headspace and that cycle of the pain and the anxiety around the pain, and like that feedback loop, and kind of
Yeah,
shift your headspace by being in a different physical space.
yeah.
As well as the hammocks in my class, I have another mind body helper. The music that I play in class is generated by my plants. So I have this device called a plant wave, and it's two electrodes that I stick on different plant leaves, and it reads the electrical changes through the plants and makes a sound wave that then I can send to my phone and choose other different instruments to output it through. So I have this like ever changing soundtrack that's generated from the plants in my
Oh,
studio,
that's so
and
cool.
it's so cool. Yeah, they make really beautiful ambient music that changes based on the times of day and like the mood of that plant.
Mhm.
Like if you give it some more water, or if you touch its leaves, it changes. So like I have that soundtrack in my classes as well. And like just lying in the hammock, hearing the plant sounds, I feel like it's a meditation in itself. It's a sound meditation.
Yeah, that is so I'm gonna have to get myself one of those. I didn't know I knew that they were doing studies, like, that they, were putting electrodes on plants and kind of, learning the plant language or whatever. I don't know. I heard something on social media about a study that they did. I had no idea that there were, like, products on the market like that because that's so cool.
It's so cool. Yeah, it's called the plant wave.
Okay, the plant wave. I'm definitely going to look into that because I'm looking at my plants on my windowsill right now, and I I have to hear them now. I wanna know what they're saying. That's awesome. So this other aspect of accessibility, you also speak a lot about neurodivergence and how aerial yoga can provide a really safe space for neurodivergent individuals, which again, a lot of neurodivergent people are women or identify as women. So, can you talk a little bit about how aerial yoga supports these people, especially ones who have struggled perhaps with a traditional yoga class?
Yeah. And I think it's starting with just that acknowledgement. We've all got different brains, we've all got different bodies, we're all going to respond differently to different movements, different sensations. And the practice is feeling into ourselves and working with our minds, our bodies. We're all on our own journey.
Mhm.
So I've spoken about the vestibular system, and we all have a vestibular system, but often the volume is turned up on those vestibular input sensations for neurodivergent people. And it's why, like, often I see it with kids, like sensory swings and things like that. Like, it doesn't tend to be applied to adults as readily, even
Mhm.
though, like, same brains, same nervous systems, like same sensory response. So it is really great to kind of be able to provide adults with these tools to regulate their own nervous system through movement and the vestibular system. The other thing that can come up with everybody, but especially I notice it with my neurodivergent clients, is being still is not always relaxing. So this happens for people who have PTSD as well. Sometimes being still can be triggering. To try and hold yourself still can be the opposite of relaxation. So if you're in a traditional yoga class and everyone's lying on the mat and somebody is either holding it in, that's not relaxing for them, or moving in a way that other people might perceive as fidgeting, like stimming,
Yeah.
it can be seen as something that's distracting or something you should like evolve beyond. I feel
Mhm.
like everyone being in the hammock cocoon gives people space to gently move in the way that feels right for them. And it's not a visual distraction for anyone around them. No one's touching each other. It's not a physical distraction, but just giving people the space to move if they feel like they need to move to relax can be a bit of a game changer. Uh, Beautiful member of my studio community, Joelle, has made hammock safe stim toys as well. So they're beads on, it's like they're caterpillar shaped. So beads on strings, and they're hammock safe because they don't have any sharp edges and they don't make sounds. So again, not distracting for anyone else. But if having something in your hands, having that sensory input helps you into meditation and relaxation, like use
Mhm.
it, use all the resources. So that can be helpful. And just as a general yoga teaching thing, some people are great at auditory processing, taking in information like verbally. Some people are great with like visually taking information in. Some people need to feel something in their bodies to learn it.
Yeah.
So I really try and use all those different ways of teaching. So it's sometimes seen as being a more like evolved teaching technique to only use your words, to not demonstrate anything. And I think that like just makes it a lot harder for some people in your class to take in what you're trying to say and
Mhm.
do. And it also sets up a bit of a hierarchy in class. Like if one person is just talking and telling everyone else what to do, that's a little bit of a different energy of everyone moving together. So I try and do like if I'm teaching something new, sometimes I'll show it first
Mhm.
and talk through what I'm doing, especially if you'll end up not being able to see me through the entire move. But then um, I'll try and do the movement with people as we talk through, and obviously as I'm visually demonstrating it, and try and give feedback cues along the way as to whether you should just stay at that version of the pose or whether you want to try something different from there. So, with, say, inversions, it feels a bit more high stakes when you're up in the air and
Mhm.
trying to learn a new movement, especially if your mind takes a while to integrate new movements. So I try and practice it low to the ground wherever possible. So you can have lots of tries, like make the muscle memory, what you're doing with your legs, what you're doing with your upper body, but very low to the ground. So it doesn't matter if you get confused or it just takes a while for your mind and body to integrate that information, that you're already on the floor. No one's
Mm.
falling down. Like it's a very there's plenty of time
Yeah.
to like make those movements happen. So I really try and teach in that way as much as I can. So kinesthetic learners, people who learn by doing, can learn by doing,
Yeah.
and then just add that extra element of maybe being a bit higher up in the air.
Mhm. Yeah, that's all. Because I'm one of those people that I'm like, I have to do it, and yeah, in a yoga class where they're just talking to the class, I am not an auditory learner. I am way too easily distracted, if not by something else, by something in my own head. Like I'm having a conversation with myself, I'm thinking about what I have to do tomorrow. Like I'm not listening. Just like just somebody's like teaching me, not showing, not allowing me to try it. So
Or even
yeah.
just the stress of trying to memorize the movement. Like you can just
Yeah.
get caught up in the like, okay, I do that thing and then I do that thing and then what?
Mhm.
Like it's
Mhm.
yeah, I
Yeah.
don't think it works for everybody's brains at all.
Definitely not. Yeah, and that's I mean, and especially obviously in this conversation and after reading your book and everything, like you really do get like when you say accessibility, you mean true accessibility. I think a lot of people say it and we like automatically think of a physical accessibility somebody like perhaps that needs a wheelchair or something like that is like our automatic thought when there is so much more. It's a much wider umbrella. And particularly when it comes to fitness and to something that we want slash need to be accessible to everyone in order for like equality and true health for everyone because everyone deserves that. It's such an important thing. So I really do applaud you for you know really taking that to heart, true accessibility.
Oh, like
Yeah.
thank you so much. And like it's not like I feel like that is my job as being
Yeah.
a yoga teacher, like sharing
Mhm.
yoga in the way that everyone can benefit from it. And I don't have all the answers. Like I think part of being trying to meet everyone's needs is it's a collaboration. So I might have options for someone to try, but then I'll be like, so is this better or worse? So it's not like I need to know what everybody needs, like what version of pose is going to work for everyone. It's more like I can just create a space where people can discover that for themselves. And honestly, that really takes the pressure off. Like, I
Yeah.
don't have to have all the answers, and there probably isn't one right answer. It's just that discovery process with that person. And then I might learn things from that person that gives me another suggestion for the next
Yeah.
person to try. So, yeah, like it's definitely a collaborative process for
Mhm.
sure.
Mhm. And I love the mindset of just always learning. I think a lot of people like reach a certain point in their career or expertise where they're like, I'm like top in my field. And it's like, even if that's true, you should always have that mindset of always learning, of like, I'm just starting out and, gathering as much information, speaking to people, asking questions, like you said, I think is so important. So we are coming up on the end here, but I have a couple more questions For anyone listening who like originally maybe started listening to this conversation thinking yoga isn't for me or people like me, what message do you want them to take away from this?
I think definitely keep looking and maybe search on the basis of accessibility to again shout out the accessible yoga movement. Um, their trainings are amazing and they have lots of different people from different backgrounds. They're very much about bringing the yoga philosophy into action. So the ethics and like living your yoga is very much at the forefront. And it might be that the asana isn't
Mhm,
your vibe, but you might access yoga in a different way. So maybe it's through something that you already do. Like if you're a musical person, maybe it's sound meditation, maybe using mantra, maybe using something that you're already naturally drawn to in more of a meditative way to find your way to to your practice of yoga. Like there's a lot of focus on asana and like I really like to move my body. That feels good for me. So that is like I do in my classes teach movement
mhm.
and asana as a way towards those deeper meditation and relaxation states. But maybe like art or creativity is more a way for you to get towards those states. So I would like start by tuning into maybe it's being in nature
Mhm,
and nature based meditation practices. So definitely it's great to find a way to move that feels good for you. But if the state of yoga, that state of connection to who you are and connection to nature and connection out to the rest of the universe. Like that doesn't have to come from asana. Like it
mhm.
can come in so many different ways. And I'd start by feeling into like what you're naturally drawn to and then how you could shift that from being achievement based. So, say to take the music example, making music for someone else to hear, polishing a song, performance into a practice that you do for yourself to
Mhm.
access that state of mind, to take that external pressure out of it and to use that practice to go inwards. Like
Yeah,
that's what I do.
yeah, and that is such a practice, and I at least know for me, like, that is something that I am trying to prioritize more in my life because everything has always just been for achievement and for some sort of, like, have some sort of something produced at the end, and it is so important to just, like, be creative, whatever that means for you, for absolutely no purpose of like the way a child is. Your kid is just creative because it's a natural instinct. And I think we just kind of beat it out of children. And by a certain age, it's like the only reason to be creative would be to make money. And it's like, no, like you need it for your health to just do things without having a goal other than having fun, I guess, you know.
Yeah, totally. It's capitalism. It's like,
Mhm.
unless you can like make a product out of this, it's not worth doing.
Mhm.
And like,
Exactly.
that's totally like, that's the opposite of that.
Yes, exactly. Well, this has been such an amazing conversation. I do have one last question I like to ask all of my guests at the end. And you can take this in any direction you would like. We talked about a lot of different things today. So, if you could rewrite the health class curriculum that every woman deserves, what would your first lesson be?
And I mean, I think it has to start with the definition of woman. And I've heard you acknowledge non binary people, trans women. Like, I think it
Mhm,
has to be a more expanded gender identity that
mhm,
includes everyone and acknowledges that sometimes as we learn about ourselves, things can change. So, it
mhm,
like starting with that foundation of self love, knowing yourself, understanding who you are, moving through the world in a way that supports that, and hopefully starting from that as education creates a society where people value each
mhm,
other
mhm,
equally, where everyone has space to grow and thrive and express who they are. as this like unique, amazing rainbow of individuals who can all create a better world together. Like that would be where I'd
Yeah.
start from.
And that's beautiful. And that reminds, I don't want to take credit for this idea at all. I know that this is something that's common in a lot of Indigenous communities, but it's not so much about like male, female, these like this strict binary. It's more about the different balance of masculine and feminine energy in each individual. And that's just like what it is. Like it's all this big spectrum, and everybody might fall at a slightly different place on the spectrum, but it's not this like strict A or B, you know? So yeah, I think that
Yeah, and
we'd have a much
just
better
to like
world.
cycle back to what you were talking about earlier about the inequity between women's health conditions,
Mhm,
funding,
mhm,
research, and
mhm.
men's health conditions,
Right?
funding, research. It's like, I can't remember the statistics, but like the amount of money that goes towards erectile dysfunction versus endometriosis and chronic
Yeah,
health pains is staggering. So I think
yeah.
if we start from that basis of everybody has a value in the world just by being human, just by being
Mhm,
here, then hopefully that also flows into more equity in healthcare, and it just helps us all live better
mhm,
lives.
mhm. Absolutely. Absolutely, 100%. It is so true. Thank you so much, Joe. This was a really great conversation. I know a lot of people are going to learn a lot and also just like, I think, feel very, validated, I guess, with this conversation, especially people who maybe were thinking like, it's too difficult for me to exercise or move, or there's just certain types of exercise that aren't for me. I think that you definitely have changed some perspectives today. So thank you so much for being here. When does your book release again?
Oh, so it comes out April 21st,
Okay,
and
perfect.
yeah, so soon.
Yeah, very soon.
Yeah, yeah.
Awesome. I will make sure that that is linked. I have the landing page link, I believe. So I'll make sure that is in the show notes for everybody, as well as your website and everything.
Yeah, so I'm Garden of Yoga on Instagram and Facebook, and we just made an easy link for the book as well. You can just find it at 8limbsofaerialyoga.com or
Perfect.
from my website, gardenofyoga.com.au.
Okay, awesome.
And also my own podcast, the Flow Artist Podcast,
Oh,
which I think you
yes, of
mentioned at the
course.
beginning. That would be
I
great
did.
as well.
Okay, awesome. I will make sure that the website and Joe's podcast, the Flow Artist Podcast, as well as the book landing page and all social media accounts are linked for you guys below. So you can check out all of her stuff. And if you are in the Melbourne area, then you definitely should go check out Garden of Yoga.
Thank you so much, Autumn. It was so great to talk to you, and I really appreciate everything that you do. Like, information is power. So, thank you so much for everything that you do and everything that you share.
Thank you. Thank you, Joe. This was great. All right, class dismissed.